Hello and welcome to today's Industry Solutions webinar. My name is Lisa Stewart and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at 12D Solutions. While we wait for everyone to finish joining and get comfortable, launch a polling question. You'll have about 30 seconds to answer about how you currently transfer data from remote locations, and then I'll show the results. Okay, quite a variety of answers today. A lot of people using Dropbox, but a few using 12D Synergy as well, so I'm sure we'll all get a lot out of today's webinar. Okay, let's get started. Our Industry Solutions webinars are designed to provide insights into overcoming challenges in an evolving industry in more effective and efficient ways. We'll keep running these webinars regularly and recording them for posting on our YouTube channel, with links through our website. Our first 41 webinars from this Industry Solutions series, as well as the 45 webinars from our training series, are available online if you missed those. During this live presentation, you'll be able to type your questions along the way. We'll put some instructions on the screen. We'll answer as many as possible of those throughout the webinar, and at the end I'll read out some of your questions to the presenter. Today's webinar, Safeguard Your 12D Model Projects from Data Corruption, will be presented by 12D Solutions General Manager Joel Gregory. Joel previously worked for 12D UK in the London office for 6 years, spreading the use of 12D model in the UK, Europe, Middle East and Africa. He's now Sydney-based and is working with clients of both 12D model and 12D Synergy across the globe. Data corruption is one of the hot topics our support teams are coming across right now. Are you guilty of the unsafe data transfer practices that are putting your priceless geospatial data at risk? Joel will run you through some of the warning signs of high-risk processes and talk you through some best practices for overcoming these issues. Review your processes to ensure this doesn't happen to you in the future. Over to you, John.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So first of all, I'll start today by just talking about some of the aims of the webinar. Particularly over the last 5 years, there has been a huge uptake of cloud storage solutions, such as Dropbox, as we saw in the poll there, to enable data transfer and work sharing between different users. And of course, 12D Model and CAD is no exception. However, on our support lines, we are receiving more calls of having corrupted data projects. And when we inquire to our customers what their data management procedures are, they are using Dropbox, and sometimes they're using pretty poor procedures and processes, which are actually the culprits of that data corruption. So I thought it'd be a good idea today to put together a webinar where I can discuss some of the pitfalls of these consumer-grade cloud solutions. Also, I can give you some ideas of how you can improve your data management procedures to minimize these risks in the future. And also, as you all know, we have a data management system, 12D Synergy, which does minimize all these risks. So I can also mention how our product solves these problems. So first of all, I'll start with talking about what is a consumer-grade cloud solution. Okay, so you've seen a fair few options out there. They can include Dropbox, Box.com, OneDrive, Google Drive. There's a whole range. These are just some of the major players that are out there. Now, these software packages are quite good. They normally offer free versions with limited storage and features, and then they offer a professional version for a few $100s per user per month. So a lot of our clients are using that. Now, I call them consumer grade because they are primarily designed for sharing photos and office documents. I actually use OneDrive and Google Drive for my personal photos and documents, and I'm really happy with their services, to be honest. However, when you come to a geospatial data management perspective, so when you're managing DWGs and 12D model projects, in this example, that's when these programs really fall over. So for instance, when you're moving a DWG around, all the XREFs in that DWG will break. Now, these solutions can be good for small groups, 1 or 2 people, but once you get to 3 to 4 users, the worksheet really breaks down. That's where a lot of these risks really escalate exponentially. So I won't be picking on any of these specific products in this webinar, but talking about them quite generally, and you might be able to pick up a few tips along the way. Now, a lot of the things I will talk about today will also help in a shared Windows Drive situation as well, which most medium and large companies are still utilizing, just a map shared drive. So just because you're not using a cloud solution doesn't mean that some of these pointers you won't find useful. So first of all, I thought I'd start with the 12D model folder structure. Now, probably everyone here is aware of the folder structure of 12D, but I thought that's a pretty good place to start because it is fairly unique compared to standard Office documentation. So 12D model doesn't run a single file like a DWG with AutoCAD, and like many other geospatial programs like TubeFlow and SpaceGas and others, we create a folder of files rather than just a single file, and there's quite a lot of advantages in that. And it's not just the folder in the project folder, it's also the user library and other files that we link to that actually run for a seamless 12D model operation. So why a folder structure? First of all, it runs a lot faster, particularly when you've got large data sets, and 12D model is optimized for those large projects. Manipulating hundreds of smaller files is much easier than opening up a 2 gigabyte behemoth file. There's less data transfer because you're only sending individual files rather than that really big one. And it's much easier to manipulate those small files. And overall, there's a reduced risk of file corruption because even if Windows does corrupt one file, it's just that single file and you might be able to recover the whole project. Where if you've got a single DWG, when anything corrupts in there, the whole thing is gone. So that's sort of the mentality behind it, and also why a lot of the software packages that are optimized for large projects, like your drainage packages, XPStream and TubeFlow and such, do manage lots of files rather than a single file. So that's a bit of a history before I jump into the detail of this webinar. So where do we go from here? So we've got a cloud storage. First of all, there's 2 modes that you can set these systems up. Okay, now firstly, you can run directly from the cloud, or you can synchronize data from the cloud into a reserved location on your local drive. So you can see here on the right-hand side, I've got links for both Dropbox and OneDrive here, just on the left-hand side, and then you've got a standard folder structure. So it's pretty much just a separated workspace on your drive. Now, the first rule for 12D model projects is don't run them directly from the cloud. Dropbox or Box or any of these solutions have no concept of a managed folder, so they only manage individual files. So when you're using 12D model, the program's constantly creating, editing, and deleting files. Dropbox can't keep up with all those changes, and a lot of the time it's deleting files that it shouldn't, or adding files, not deleting things that it should. So I guess worst case, you're going to have lots of extra files that 12D doesn't need, so it's just going to take up a lot more data space. Worst case scenario, you're going to delete the wrong file by accident, or Dropbox will be deleting the wrong file by accident and corrupt your entire 12D model project. And there's really nothing we can do once that file disappears, and your entire project could be lost. So we certainly recommend that everyone sync to the local drive if you're using one of these systems. That's probably the first and most important thing that you need to do, because then these systems won't get so confused. There are also small little gotchas that I've heard about from our support guys. So one was when editing an MTF file or a similar text file inside of 12D model, if you go in there and change a line and save it away, the file size might not actually change. And a lot of these systems, as the file size doesn't change, they don't detect that as a modification and they won't update the file. So I then save my project in. Someone else then opens it up, but that file, that MTF, is never actually saved across. Now, these little issues can be quite insidious too, because you wouldn't actually know that this file hasn't been uploaded. So your business colleague will run all the apply minis thinking that everything's sweet, but then it will default to the old MTF. So there are some problems and things have come up where all of a sudden, apply minis weren't running correctly, and it was because of that problem that the MTFs weren't actually uploaded. So there's a few little gotchas like that just to be aware of. So I guess it's be vigilant and just, make sure you're looking at your data sets correctly. Now, I guess the difference from a 12D synergy perspective, how would it manage it? Well, it's got a concept called a managed folder. And when you've got a managed folder, it treats the whole folder as a single entity. So when you check out a 12D model project, the whole project comes saved to your local workspace with all the associated files and folders, and locks it so only you can edit it. you make the edits you want, and then when you check it back in, all the files that have changed are transferred back to the service. So it's a real rock solid process that can't be broken. And at the moment, it's the only product available that handles a folder of files correctly, and that's the whole reason we created Synergy. So it's really a unique benefit there. And managed folders, it's a real generic solution too. So most programs out of the box with Synergy will work, like Tubeflow, XP Swim, LizCAD, Trimble Business Center. They'll just work, straight away. So that's really the first one. Make sure that you're syncing locally. Next, we'll go to multi-user access. Okay, this is probably the one we come up across the most, and is probably the biggest risk. So cloud storage, it works really well for one user. Once you start getting to 2, 3, and 4, then it becomes quite problematic. And if 2 people are opening the same project at the same time, because there's no check-in and check-out process, those users can be saving and sending files back to the same location in the cloud. And obviously, 12D Model or any program is going to get very confused when all these new files are being created in the same destination. So at best, it'll pollute your 12D Model project with unwanted files. And at worst, it's going to corrupt the entire 12D project because random files are just coming in. There's also a good chance that no one will be able to undo the damage that's done because you're overriding files backwards and forwards. So really the key here is communication. So with a small group of people, especially if you're in the same room, it can be a lot easier to just let everyone know which projects that you're working on. So that's really the biggest defense here, is just make sure you know who's working on what before you go in and make any edits. Because if you do edit the same project, it could be catastrophic. For larger projects too, some of our clients are breaking the jobs up into zones, and then each user is accessing just a single zone. So it's almost like a roster of who's actually in there at one time. And I guess with a larger team, you do need some sort of system like that to make sure that you don't have any clashes with people accessing the same project. Again, having a system that really manages this communication is critical. And if someone needs to edit a project outside their zone, they really need to make sure that no one else is editing it at the same time. Now, this is problematic if you've got remote users where it's not so easy just to yell around the office, but that's something that you'll have to, I guess, create your own systems and processes to overcome that problem. Now, most of the data, you don't have a great amount of control when the data is pushed back into the cloud. A lot of the time when you hit save on the 12D Model project, most of the files do get pushed up. But care does need to be taken when you're building master projects of the whole data set to ensure that you're using the most up-to-date data from everyone. So again, communicating that everyone's checking in all their projects before they upload into the master project, just to make sure you're using the most up-to-date data. Sometimes there is a delay with these systems of actually receiving the data into the cloud. So yeah, there is potentially issues there of just using outdated data. Now with 12D Synergy, alternatively, there's a check-in, check-out system, so 2 users can never accidentally be editing the same project at a time. If someone's in there, you can simply notify them, hey, can you jump out, I need to edit this. As you can see from the screenshot on the screen, this is from a customer talk at our last conference. It's really obvious too to see who's working on each project. You can see right from the folder tree there. So you're not necessarily relying on shouting or emailing each other about who's editing which project. Now, the next thing would be version control and backups, or potentially their lack thereof. Now, version control, it's basically a digital audit trail for every file. So it's about knowing who edited the file, when they did it, and why. Now, most free cloud solutions don't have any sort of version control. However, a few of them have it for the paid versions, and however, they only focus on individual files. So I think normally you can have up to 100 different, the history of 100 changes in the past. Now, if you're making design changes and you want to roll back to say, where you were 2 weeks ago, or you have a corrupt project so you want to roll back, because it's only managing individual files, it's quite hard to work out which files need to be reverted back to build a project from, say, last week. So although there is version control in there, it really works well for, say, Word documents. When you're talking about 12D model projects, it can be quite cumbersome. Furthermore, too, a lot of these systems don't have a formal backup process. I guess everyone thinks, it's in the cloud, it'll never, you wouldn't need a backup. However, when you're reverting to previous versions, if you're having issues and you've corrupted your project, because there is no official backup, you could have lost all your data completely, basically. So your entire project could be lost. So there is an issue here that there is no formal backup that you probably would have had if you just had a Windows-based experience. So this is where a data management system like Synergy provides you with a rock-solid version control, so you can see exactly who's edited and why. So you can see from the screenshot on the screen there, you can, every change has a description, so what actually happened at each step, you get a screenshot as well. And you can actually roll back to any of those previous versions as well. Now, most users say that they don't use this capability every day, but it's a great insurance policy for when things go horribly wrong and they can just roll back and go back to a previous version that was working well. Having a rock-solid QA process as well certainly makes the managers happy as well. So there's a bit of a win there. Next, another issue we come up with is the data transfer problem. Now, everyone in our industry knows that we have really large geospatial data sets. It's a real challenge for architects, engineers, and construction professionals in our industry. They're enormous and they're constantly getting bigger. This is a real problem for most generic solutions, which really are just built for Word and photos. For them, 5 megabytes is probably a large file. For us, we're talking gigabytes before we even start to think that it's getting large. So most cloud solutions generally aren't the fastest. So when you upload and download, they're normally quite relatively slow, and this changes depending on the cloud provider and your internet connection, of course. The other problem too is that when you download the data sets, you're generally being pushed all the data rather than just the data that you need. So it really just floods you with everything that you might want to synchronize that full data set. So, and similarly too, when you make changes and you push them back to the cloud, so say you've got a 1 gigabyte 12D model project, you make your changes, you push it back, that 1 gigabyte then gets pushed to everyone else that's working on it. So potentially, once you've sort of got 5 or 6 users all working on 12D or CAD, you're starting to push serious amounts of data to everyone in the team, and it can really grind your entire business to a standstill. And we've had reports of that happening. So that can be an issue and something to be aware of. I'm not actually sure what the solution here is other than finding a faster internet connection or minimizing the size of your projects, really. From a 12D Synergy perspective, we've got intelligent data transfer capabilities, which really limits the amount of data that's transferred. So you only receive the files that you need when you need them. So users have reported back a 91% data reduction in the amount that's actually transferred compared to a standard Windows configuration. And if you can compare it to the performance when you're in a cloud storage solution where you're pushing data to all users, it'd be a huge multiple of that as well. You get even more benefit. And it's just not the amount of data that's sent, it's also waiting for that data to be transferred, which has actually a significant cost. So we've got customers reporting a saving of 4 hours per week per user just on waiting for 12D model projects to download. So reducing the data that's sent can have a real cost advantage and save you a lot of time every week. Now, my final point here, we've got a lot of clients, to get around some of these issues, they're actually zipping up the projects before they upload them. So this does minimize a lot of data corruption problems that I've spoken about earlier. Now, one thing to make sure is you're zipping up the entire project, a real pack and go. So you're making sure you've got all your customization and other items with it. Otherwise, if someone's opening up the project, it could be completely different if you're using the different user libraries. Now, this also removes the risk of multiple users uploading at the same time and corrupting their projects. And it also provides a backup because you're going to have multiple versions of this, the project. Now, of course, there are, like everything, there are downsides to this problem. First of all, zipping and unzipping does take time. Think of zipping up a 1 gigabyte project, you upload it, and then of course you've got to unzip it at the other end. So there's that to think about. There's also uploading multiple versions of 12D model projects. So all of a sudden you're going to have lots of duplicate files. So a really big thing here is making sure that your naming conventions are really good and that everyone's following them. Otherwise, you're going to risk using outdated files. The other issue with duplicates, of course, is that they take up a lot of space. So for every duplicate, you're pretty much doubling up on the amount of data that you're using. So you have to go through and have a really strict process for cleaning out that data, or else the data storage is going to get really congested very, very quickly. So again, solution, communication, making sure that everyone's on the same page with the projects that are being uploaded and downloaded. We've also got, the strict naming convention that everyone needs to follow. And of course, this workaround isn't really needed when you're using Synergy. So yeah, that's really a bit of an overview here. I'll just hand over to Lisa for some questions.
Thanks, Joel. Yes, we might take a couple of questions live today. Josh in Melbourne has asked, do you need to zip up 12D model projects to transfer them via 12D Synergy?
No, you don't need to do that process because of the intelligent data transfer. One thing with version 4 that's coming out at the technical forum at the end of this month, we actually do have an option to zip up projects in the 12D model check-in and check-out process that can reduce the time taken to transfer projects. However, that's just that just happens in the background. There's no real need to zip projects in 12D Synergy.
Sure, okay. And Bill from Perth would like to know, does Synergy need to be hosted in the cloud to transfer from the field?
Yeah, well, I know a lot of businesses are cloud first these days and they want everything to be in the cloud. So Synergy can be either cloud hosted or you can have an on-site hosted solution. So you've really got the option of which way you want to go, and a lot of our clients are already in the cloud. Now, as long as it doesn't really matter where the server's hosted, because users can gain access using a Windows tablet. So if you're out in the field with a Windows tablet, you can connect to your server and you can have access to all your 12D model projects, documents, and data, basically. So yeah, all you need is a Windows computer or tablet, and yeah, you can get full access to your Synergy server.
Okay, thanks. And we'll do just one more live today. Michael in Brisbane said, I'm a one-man band surveyor. I'm currently using Dropbox. Do you really think there's a need to invest in 12D Synergy?
Yeah, this is a fairly common question for small survey teams. And look, if you follow the steps that we sort of outlined in this webinar, you can minimize a lot of the data corruption risks, but there is still a risk to your business of projects being corrupted. And I guess you've got to ask yourself, what is the cost of one major issue with your data in lost productivity? You've also got to think, is your business going to be growing? Are you going to be a one-man band forever? As soon as you get 2, 3, 4, or 5 staff members, the problems really do escalate exponentially. So sometimes it can be good to implement a system like this when you are small, get everything working well, and then it allows you to scale a lot easier in the future. Also, yeah, there's a lot more to Synergy than just removing data corruption issues. So, I'd really look at reviewing your systems and processes, and there's going to be a whole heap of different benefits that you could unlock with Synergy. So I'd certainly recommend seeing a demo and having a look at the full product rather than just judging it on a single feature like data corruption.
Thanks, Joel. Did you have anything else you wanted to conclude with today?
Yep, I will do a bit of a wrap up for everyone. Just get my thoughts here. So yeah, look, consumer grade cloud solutions can work. They are fairly useful for small teams, especially 1 or 2 people, and are very easy to set up. Just make sure that you've got great communication and naming conventions. I guess the other thing is just to be aware that there is a risk of data corruption. There's limited backup, so if you can, create a zip file or just back things up every now and then just to protect yourself. You might really thank yourself in the future that you've only lost a day's work or so rather than losing absolutely everything. And just remember too that, over time, especially when you get more users, there's going to be slow and congested network traffic. So just be aware of those issues when you're long-term planning. And I guess we'll put a shout out to, if anyone does want an obligation-free Synergy demo, you can just type demo into the questions panel, or I think there's also a survey at the end which you can come along, just let us know, and we can provide you an overview and also have a bit of a discussion about your processes and how they could be improved. So it's not necessarily just a pitch for Synergy, but a good opportunity to talk to someone, an expert in the industry that really helps people with these problems. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks for that, Joel. Actually, we've had a few attendees today already typing in where they're asking where they can get a demo in the questions, so I'm sure you'll be very busy after this one. And don't forget, everyone, our 12D Technical Forum is on in Brisbane this July. Well, later this month, actually. Goodness, it's almost upon us. We'll be showcasing there the new 12D Model 14 and the new 12D Synergy 4, and everything's going to be all on those and the release of those, so something to look forward to. The recording of today's webinar will be available on our YouTube channels in coming days. Our next two Industry Solutions webinars will be Total Synergy and 12D Synergy, your complete AEC business solution, on the 18th of July at 2 p.m, and 12D Technical Forum 2018, a review, on the 9th of August at 1 p.m. So register for those now if you haven't already, and keep an eye on our emails and social media channels for more great upcoming topics in this and our training series. If you need to contact us in the meantime, we'll pop some contact details up on the screen. That concludes our presentation for today. Thank you everyone for attending, and we hope to see you at future webinars.